And now time to revisit one of our major topics of today, the U.S.-EU relations in light of persistent calls by President Donald Trump to annex the Arctic island of Greenland. Joining me now on the program is Jan Zielonka, professor of politics at the University of Venice. Professor, great to have you on World News Tonight. Thank you for joining.
Nice to be with you.
I would like to start by drawing a comparison and understanding the difference in dynamic between the EU and the US. In your 2006 book, Europe as an Empire, you argued that EU operates as a neo-medieval empire with fuzzy borders, with divided sovereignty, with power that is being the power that is being explored through governance rather than actual military force. When we look at the US, there is a contrast with the Westphalian model where we have borders and concentrated power. With what's happening with President Trump and these calls to get Greenland one way or the other, how do you interpret this clash between this Westphalian model and the neo-medieval Europe?
European model was very successful. Let's not forget that there was the Soviet Union, which was more powerful than contemporary Russia. And we have brought downfall of the Soviet Union without a single shot. Sure, there was the military deterrence and American role in this, but there was also trade, international law, and normative, or if you prefer, ethical policy, which led to disintegration of the Soviet Union. We also stabilized the post-Soviet environment by embarking on the policy of enlargement, which again was not based on military aspects. Of course, in the ideal world, actors should have not just soft power, but also hard power. But let's also not underestimate the role of soft power in building American strength. Because if you have soft power, you basically make other actors do what you want, not because you apply expensive carrots or sanctions, but because they play the rule of the game, and they may even think that what you propose is good for them. If you don't have this normative power or international law, you have to, apply bayonets each time you want to make other actors do what you want. And as Napoleon famously said, you can do many things with bayonets, but not to sit on them.
So with Donald Trump's firm stance on Greenland and on taking over, what do you think should be EU's response next? How do you maintain a cordial relationship with the US while maintaining your position and showing your power?
Look, I'm in an international project which try to study power in its various dimensions. And the EU is nearly on par with China and much above Russia, India, or other global powers. So the EU is not totally toothless. And there is discrepancy in military might, but do we really expect that there will be military clash between EU and the United States? I don't think so. The Greenland case is difficult, but we are still not there. The problem, of course, is if the black scenario materializes, that actually the current administration is not just taking lip service to old NATO allies, but actually change sides and join hands with our arch enemy Putin. Mm-hmm. Well, there are some signs that this black scenario might be actually legitimate. If you consider that Donald Trump and his people support parties in Europe, which to a large extent are financed by Moscow, then you wonder what is the situation. Or if you look at, for instance, the latest security doctrine, which is rather critical of Europe and not of Russia, then you also wonder, or consider the latest so-called peace proposal for Ukraine, which basically accepted all Russians' demands. So there are reasons to worry about the worst case scenarios, and we have to be prepared for that.
But I would like to...
we are still not there.
We're still not there, but we have to consider different scenarios, as you said it yourself. Let's take a look at NATO. NATO was built on the assumption that the risk, the danger is actually coming from outside, not from within. With the current situation, NATO is, the U.S. is NATO's most powerful member, and it could potentially go against another member of the NATO alliance, Denmark. Do you think that NATO can survive if such occurrence would take place?
I don't think NATO can survive. I'm not sure any longer whether Article 5, which is actually the fundament of NATO, is still valid. But European response about Greenland will not be military. Yes, I know that some politicians think we should send European troops to Greenland, but I think it would be totally silly. We cannot have a military conflict with America for various reasons. But we have other means to make America listen. We, in the field of trade, for instance, or we can sanction mega tech firms from America. We can refuse to pay taxes without taxes from our side vis-à-vis the United States. Here, where Europe has real teeth. But most importantly, you see, power politics is not only about muscles. Power politics is also about brain. And we should use our brain and be simply smart in conducting European policy vis-à-vis the United States. So I don't really believe that we should make an empty gesture or write aggressive tweets on platform X. No, we should simply stand our ground and make America aware that we are not going to buy everything they propose. This would require unity, which is sometimes lacking, but because there are politicians in Europe which try to capitalize on this behavior of President. But I think there are enough reasonable politicians in Europe, including even Prime Minister of Italy, which you would not expect that she would side with Europeans because she is a favorite of President Trump. And yet she understands that European cooperation matters. I'm not even talking about other people who you have now on the screen.
Professor, just before we go, because our time on the show is coming to an end, sadly, if you had 60 seconds to speak to the European leaders who could potentially be watching us this very moment, what would you tell them right now about the situation in Greenland, how to act with the US, and what the future of Europe could be?
No, stand your ground. Don't overblow the importance of Greenland. For the future of Europe, but you defend your member state, Denmark, and you tried to go for negotiated solution which meets security demands of the United States, provided that this is real concern. Because if security is only an excuse for Americans, but because it is about land grab, so to speak, in a legal way, then there is little to talk about. And we have to be prepared to stand the ground.
Thank you so much, Professor Jan Zielonka, Professor of Politics at the University of Venice, was my guest here on World News Tonight. Professor, good night. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And so this would be all for now. I'm Klaudia Czerwińska. Thank you very much for joining me tonight, and I hope to see you back here on TVP World for more news and features in just a moment.